Hi, this is Paula. This is Whoever Holds the Stone. This is the Stone. I'm here with Richard and Michael, and of course my son Tom on drums. And we are going to have a conversation that I'm looking forward to because I really like a lot of Michael's ideas and I'd like to expand on them a little bit. But before we do that, I am reading now you see I can't remember the name of the book exactly. I do this all the time. The hidden life of trees.
That's correct.
Okay, so The Hidden Life of Trees. And as I'm listening to it on Libby, which of course you all know is my favorite thing, I'm listening to how trees interrelate and how they help each other, which, I mean, I kind of knew a little bit about this before, but the kinds of things that they do to support each other, the weakest trees, the strongest trees will support the weaker trees. They've got relationships based on need. They will feed the other trees through their root system. They will warn. This is my favorite part. That they'll warn, like the acacia trees in Africa, when the giraffes go and nibble on the leaves, they will send off this. It's either a scent or a poison, and they will get rid of the giraffes from eating too many of their leaves so that they would die. And this travels a distance, this smell or this chemical reaction. So they're warning other trees that the giraffes are coming. So the giraffes won't go to the trees next door. They'll actually make a loop and they'll go all the way around to these other trees that haven't gotten the warning yet that the giraffes are coming. I mean, nature's an amazing thing. But the more I was reading about this, the more I started thinking, this sounds like and he actually makes a point of talking about socialist societies, and how everyone raises up at the same time. And I started thinking, this does sound like a really awesome way to live as a human. That trees don't take all of the nutrients they don't say, oh, these are mine, I'm going to keep these, I'm going to get really big. They say, okay, I've had enough. This other tree here isn't doing so well, so we're going to share with them these nutrients. And I thought, this is great. This is terrific. So being a not really closet socialist, but, at least a democratic socialist, and not believing so much in greed and not treating people correctly, I thought that would be a good way to start this conversation, because Michael has a lot of really good ideas, although he's a business owner. So he's not like, you're not looking to change the world into a communist state.
Not necessarily, no.
No. So you are a business owner, and you do work off a profit margin, and but I mean, from what I'm understanding, from the little I've read, you have a good, healthy attitude about capitalism.
I think it's it's not been a private business for a long time. We've started other not-for-profits, but I think that it's this basic concept of common good. Like I see our business as one that accomplishes multiple goals. One is an ecological goal, but when we started Buffalo Reuse, it was really a social community goal, which was to build neighborhoods, to bring people together, to create community. And that's been kind of the guiding principle behind most of the work we've done.
And I love the concept. You want to tell them a little bit, people that don't know what you do?
Yeah, so we came here 2005, November 1st, 2005. So I just passed my 20-year anniversary here in Buffalo. So I think I'm officially a Buffalonian because I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere in my life. And we quickly got to work on this concept called Buffalo Reuse, which was to recycle building parts. At the time, Byron Brown was running on his platform to tear down 10,000 houses in 10 years. a $500 million expenditure to basically take away from neighborhoods, right? And I understood the motivation. Like a lot of people, there was a lot of squeaky wheels at the time that were like, get these vacant houses out of our neighborhoods. They're a blight. They're an eyesore. They're, they attract nuisance activity, whatever you want to call it, and we don't want them here. Unfortunately, now we're in the middle of a housing crisis where we wish that a lot of those houses were back.
Yeah.
And we were screaming this 20 years ago. We were saying, don't tear down the houses, mothball the homes, save the homes. Let's try to figure out a strategic way to preserve these houses for the future, or selectively, or move them, or whatever it happens to be. A bunch of different ideas that we had to do that. But unfortunately, very few of those were embraced. And we kind of defaulted to doing the work that we were doing, which was at least salvaging and reclaiming as much of the pieces and parts from those homes before they got demolished. So everything from siding to windows to doors, cabinets, fixtures, furniture, lights, everything. And then the houses would get torn. At the time, we were also actively dismantling homes. So we had a grant from Empire State Development to actually do research and development on deconstruction, so full building dismantlement.
So you had the opportunity to save pieces that maybe wouldn't have gotten
Yep.
saved if they were being demolished another way.
Yeah, and in fact, we were saving everything right down to the structural lumber, the foundation stone, brick, flooring, everything. So it, the business has evolved over time, just in terms of the practicality and the cost structure and all of that. But the vision and the intention is still the same, which is to divert the largest quantity of reusable materials from the landfill, given the resources and the staffing that we have available. So I've tried to innovate the business to do that in different ways, where we may not be taking down houses, but maybe we take down a warehouse, and we get in the same with the same unit of labor, we get 5 or 8 or 10 times as much material. And then we do other things where we collaborate with contractors and demo contractors to get, during rehab, kitchens. We've been out to Spalding Lake, I don't know, 150 times in the last 5 years, removing kitchens, because as soon as a house sells out in Spalding Lake or in Clarence or in Williamsville or anywhere else, East Amherst, the first thing the homeowner does is they tear out the kitchen, whether it was installed last week or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they didn't like the color, or it doesn't meet their needs, or kitchens are very specialized things, and depending on the user, and people's tastes are very, a lot of people will buy a house for a neighborhood, not necessarily for a kitchen. So they can change the kitchen, they can't change the neighborhood. At least in the short
Lakes
term.
is quite elite. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that way, we're kind of the Robin Hood of the building material world, where we're taking these materials that otherwise would be thrown away, and trying to find another productive use for them when they have so much of their life left.
So do you still feel that if given the opportunity, you could change some of these abandoned properties? I mean, are they too far gone, these abandoned properties?
No, unfortunately, a lot of them weren't too far gone. I mean, the thing is, most structures can be rehabbed. There were a lot of homes that we tore down where they didn't have a full foundation, or they had, extensive deterioration.
Yeah. Because
water got in there. Yeah. You got water. If water gets in the house, it's going to create damage.
Yes.
But there are houses that I know of today that have been vacant for literally since I've been in town, 20 years. And you walk in, and I can still rehab that house way, way cheaper than I can build it.
And I saw, I was reading a little bit about you, so I could have something to talk about. But I did see that's one of the idea that you could, it's like Habitat, right? Habitat does
Habitat,
similar.
they do a little bit. They mostly run reclaimed building material stores and low-cost building supply stores.
But not for the pieces. I'm saying they take the old houses and they rehab them. So
they do a little bit of rehab. They do a lot more new builds these days. They don't do much rehab. They mostly do new construction homes now.
I love the idea.
A lot more reliable. It's a lot easier to incorporate volunteers into a new construction application. It's more reliable. There's a lot less guesswork, because you get an old house, and you start to unearth this frame. You start to dismantle, tear down all the plaster and lath, and then you look and you see what the frame is there and what the condition is, and then you're like, oh, we found a place here that was deteriorated. Or we found some, in a corner of the house here that was infested with bugs or some water, So, and then you have to fix that in place, which is challenging.
Yeah.
It's, some people say that, it would have been just, contractors all the time will say, you'll hear them say, oh, it would have just been easier to tear this down and rebuild it. And there's some truth to that, because if you're going to fix it and fix it right, it is a process
Especially
of dismantling
yeah.
and then reassembling.
If it hasn't been lived in for a while.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then because nobody, see, and that's the problem in the East Side neighborhoods especially, is that the people that own the houses have no interest in the neighborhoods. They don't care about the neighborhoods. They don't care who they rent to. They will rent to anyone, and they will never fix anything.
Yeah.
I was...
You're talking about the landlords in particular, not homeowners.
No, not the homeowners.
Right,
no. That's a way different thing.
Yeah.
Once you own something, you're vested in it. But I'm talking about the landlords, absentee mostly. And I was a job coach for a while after I retired from the state. And the one woman I was a job coach for, she had a broken window for over a year. And that landlord would not fix it.
Yeah, there are a lot of absentee landlords. There's an equally challenging prospect and challenge on the East Side, which is, even for homeowners, that it's very difficult to make the necessary improvements to your home just because of what has become over the years a devaluation of the East Side. It's kind of the remnants of the redlined districts that the redlining that occurred years and years ago. But what I found trying to fix up homes is that it's very difficult to get capital or to get an appraisal. A lot of people do significant work on their homes by taking a line of equity out.
Yeah.
Well, that equity line is based on the valuation of your home. And if your 15, 20 years ago, if you had an East Side home, it didn't have valuation.
Yeah.
It had very, very little value, and in some cases, negative value. So even if you're an employed homeowner, let's say you're working as a bookkeeper or an accountant, and you're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year, you're living on, Dodge Street, between Northampton and Maston, or between Maston and Michigan, and you've got income, but your house, if you want to get a line of equity, they're going to come out and they're going to appraise your house. Well, there are no comps. There's nothing that's sold in the last year or last few years above $20,000.
I hadn't thought about that issue.
So if you try to get a valuation on your house, and then you can only borrow 70% of the valuation, so how much does it cost to do a roof? So a lot of people, if they didn't have the capital, the accessible capital, like we have in other neighborhoods in Buffalo, to actually make the significant improvements. So what's happened over time is you've seen a deterioration of the housing stock overall because capital has been very difficult. Now, things are starting to change, and there's some investments happening with New York State now to help people make improvements. Obviously, the NHS's over time, like Broadway Fillmore NHS, and there used to be an organization called FLAIR, and PBN had some money for a while. Those organizations have money. Westside NHS as well had some money specifically to help, particularly low-income homeowners do necessary repairs to their homes. But in terms of the amount of money that's available versus the need, there's definitely, it was a gap there.
Yeah,
So.
see, that's something I mostly put the onus on the absentee landlords or the people that just don't care.
Right.
Because I grew up in Lovejoy. Lovejoy was a blue-collar neighborhood, very strong, very prejudiced. But the whole neighborhood was blue-collar. Everybody looked out for each other. It was a whole different world. And now there's so many homes that are purchased, like single homes that are purchased by investors and broken into 3 units. And they don't care if they're selling drugs out of the house as long as they're giving them their rent.
Right.
I've got a friend who lives on Gothi, and there's a house next door to her that has, marginal people moving in all the time. And she's my age. You know, she's by herself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I feel really bad that this guy doesn't give a shit
Right.
about her safety or her.
Yeah,
her
there are a
mental
lot
health.
of people that have not made the improvements. They're taking the rent, they're charging the high rents that Buffalo is receiving, and they're not reinvesting back in the properties.
No,
so it is a big challenge.
It's terrible but now it seems that there's a bunch of people moving in who are from the Middle East, and they're buying the houses and they're living there. And yes, they've got extended families, and that's better. It's
Yep.
way better for the neighborhood to have people living there that are owning the houses.
Yeah, the growing South Asian population has been a huge boom for the East Side, because the houses that otherwise probably would have deteriorated further or gone down the demolition road, now are, getting a second chance. There's some investments being made. They're buying up churches and converting them to mosques. So the growing Bengali population has been very, very good.
The church I grew up in, that I went to Catholic school as a kid, is now a Buddhist temple. It's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
It is absolute cool. When I took my grandkids there, and we all went in, and of course they had one of their friends is with them, and they're very Christian, and she was like nervous that she was going to go to hell because she was in a Buddhist temple.
Right. Oh yeah, I know my mom's a devout Catholic, so I've experienced that my whole life.
I went in there, and it was so beautiful, because all the stained glass windows are still intact, and there's still some of the.
Where's the church located?
It's on Benzinger, well, the corner of Benzinger and Luddington. It's on Luddington.
Yeah.
So they do chanting on Sundays at 10 o'clock in the morning, but not in the temple. They do it in where the monks live.
Right.
It's really cool.
It's very cool.
Totally cool.
Yeah, I mean, the population is changing, and the good thing about there's groups, a lot of the immigrants that the new folks moving to Buffalo, I should say, they're not necessarily immigrants. They're more people that are moving here from New York City. A lot of them have lived 20, 30 years in New York, and have some disposable income and have some wealth that they've created there. So coming here and being able to get a house for $50,000-$100,000 is a massive bargain. And then so it has that affordability factor. Of course, all things are relative, but that if you're moving here from Brooklyn, Buffalo is, definitely much more affordable.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know people that went to UB here and stayed because they're like, I could buy a house here, and that's before the housing thing went up. Because the houses in Lovejoy, you could buy a house in Lovejoy for $45,000, a double. 10, 15 years ago.
And there's still plenty of deals to be had.
It's very,
sure.
it's changed, because I see, I am on this Lovejoy Glory Days site, and they'll show when there's a house for sale and how much it's going for.
Right.
It's really scary, because a lot of the houses were owned by, when I sold my mother's house, I made sure I sold it to someone who wanted to live there. I was very, I got less money because of that, but I didn't care.
Well, a big part of one of the things that I talked about during the campaign was that, since 1950, we've seen a decrease in the city's population, dramatic decrease, which is a lot of the reason why we have the challenges with vacancy that we have today. But the population was approaching in 1950 600,000, and now we are just a little over. I think in the last census around 65,000.
Really?
So
did you know it was that low, Richard? I thought it was more like 50, where
it was right around 260,000. So, a big part of one of the things I talked a lot about during the campaign is, I don't know if you guys have seen that mural as you're driving down Main Street, but it says "Keep Buffalo a Secret."
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
and I was like, no, do not keep Buffalo a secret. Like I used to say, let's tell the world about Buffalo. And actually, I think it's maybe on Tupper. There's a mural that's on the side of a building that says "Tell the world about Buffalo." And because we really want to attract people to the city. We're right now confronting a situation where we have this tremendous fiscal crisis because of what basically boils down to 20 years of financial neglect and irresponsibility, in my opinion. But the one way to overcome that is to grow the tax base. And you grow the tax base by having more people live here, more people, more small businesses, more, creatives, more, people. I always want to say philanthropists. It's not philanthropists. It's people that start things.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You mean like entrepreneurs?
Entrepreneurs. I don't know why I keep
That's the
entrepreneurs.
word. Thank you.
Building a community of entrepreneurs that can build and create and start new things, because that's what gives the city its vitality, its creativity. It brings more energy here. That's it addresses all of the issues that we talk about in terms of the city of Buffalo. Decreasing population, decreasing tax base. What do we do about downtown? What do we do about this? Do you increase the population, and then you do it in a strategic way that builds focus in specific neighborhoods.
There's a Korean company that's here in Alabama, New York, and they are building a plant to make microchips.
Oh wow, yeah, I heard about this. Is that in?
It's in
what county is it in?
It's in Genesee County.
Genesee. Yeah, because it's part
County,
of their.
But it's going to be driving distance for Buffalo. It's not that bad because I know a couple people that are engineers working on the project, and I was very excited to hear that because it's close enough.
Yeah.
People drive that far all the time in New York or someplace a bigger city.
I actually, during my campaign, I visited Genesee County, the IDA out there, and specifically to talk about some of the economic development work that they were doing there. And, they actually have some housing development projects too, because the closest town is Batavia, and they don't have the available housing to support the growth that's happening in that area with all those new businesses. It's been very successful, but people in general don't want to commute 45 minutes to work. That happens in larger cities, out of necessity because of traffic. But in general, people want to live, work, go to school in in proximity to their home.
Well, that is one of the perks of living in Buffalo is not having to commute that far.
Right.
I mean, anything is 15 minutes away.
Right.
Even during rush hour. Well,
yeah.
Maybe 20
Even after
minutes.
we restore the Humboldt Parkway.
So what about that? That Humboldt Parkway thing. I'd love to see it gone, but isn't it a big source of commutation from
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is when you build a highway, people use it.
Yeah.
So it's a concept called induced demand. We talked about that, and my daughter has become a local expert in that. If you build a highway, people use it. If you don't have a highway, just like Lavinia said, she was like, well, it's going to take 6 years to build that highway, Dad. Don't you think by the time they're done building the tunnel that people have just figured out other ways to go? And when you look at the capacity, that the number of cars that actually are going down that highway, and you look at the capacity that we have on all those radial streets that come directly to downtown Buffalo. It was, at the turn of the century, is considered the best designed city in the world, because of its radial street design, because how all of the streets direct towards the downtown core. It's got an intricate system of north and south reconnectors and vibrant commercial strips. All of those commercial corridors saw dramatic decrease in economic vitality when that highway was built.
Of course.
Because cars stopped going on those streets. So if you fill in the highway, all of a sudden you return cars to those commercial streets. And when you return cars, you return business. And when you return business, people want to live and work close to home.
Well,
so you start to rebuild the fabric of vitality in the commercial districts that we lost, decades ago.
My first reaction when I started thinking about it is what kind of pressure it's going to put on the 90 and the 190, and how people it's not that they don't want to stop and shop as they're on their way home, but having to stop for lights and
Sure.
and stop signs is a deterrent to a lot
Oh yeah,
of people.
it definitely
Especially going
is a
home.
deterrent.
You know, we're going to work too because
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
late. You're always late.
Definitely going and all valid concerns. And the thing is, we think about the time moving on those radial corridors as they exist today, and we have to acknowledge that and recognize that once that highway is gone, those commercial corridors aren't going to look the way that they look today. They're going to be improved. There's going to be new technology. There's already new technology that uses GPS. It uses AI to detect where cars are along that corridor, so that lights are then coordinated to adjust that. If you drive, the technology's been around for a long time. If you drive down Oak and Elm Street, right, you might stop at one. If you come off the 190 and you go onto Oak, right?
Yeah.
Or is it Elm? It's Elm. You go onto Elm, you might stop at one light, but then the lights are synchronized and then you flow very smoothly through. So it's, we can't think about the corridors the way that they exist today. We have to be a little bit creative in how we think about it and think about what they can be like.
Yeah, that's a good
like
point.
right now, Bailey, right?
Yeah.
Is a disaster.
It's horrible.
Right? But they're gonna spend a bunch of money and they're gonna improve Bailey. So there's gonna be a dedicated bus lane. Right now the buses create a lot of bottlenecks because the bus pulls over but doesn't really have room to pull over.
Right.
So it's in the middle of the street, which stops the traffic, which backs it up, and then you get caught at a light and it creates a mess, not to mention that it's a pothole hell.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for decades. Just like Main Street, just like Jefferson, so you can't think about it in terms of the way that it exists today. What we have to do is think about the big picture and how what can we do to make it work better so that it doesn't compromise people's ability to get to work in an efficient way, and it doesn't compromise the health of the people that live along the Humboldt Parkway or the neighborhood or an Olmsted Park landscape treasure that was completely devastated to build a highway.
I totally agree with that. It should never have been built, but it's just getting people to think differently is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. Do you have anything to add to this about that highway system? Or
there's been a lot of shows here about it.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking you, because I know that you've got people coming here and talking about it.
Nothing to add.
Well, I'll tell you, it's an interesting thing because Mayor Norquist, he was the past mayor of Milwaukee. They did a similar project there where they basically removed a highway. So, there's all of these scare tactics out there by people that are either, because of the mandate of their job, are unwilling to think outside of the box and unwilling to consider things. So, but it's a big part of the reason why I ran for mayor, because it really comes down to leadership, right? It really comes down to not stoking the flames of fear, but showing people and demonstrating for people what it could be like. So how do you do that? Well, you shut down the 33 one day. And that's what Mayor Norquist did. They just shut down the highway in a very strategic way. They had the DOT involved. They shut down the highway and they set up detours and they showed people where they would go, and they shut it down for a few weeks, and it wasn't Carmageddon. And it wasn't disastrous, and it didn't take 15 or 20 minutes extra to get home. It took a minute or two more extra. And I've been on Elmwood Avenue and in a bunch of traffic at times, and I'm like, damn it, I wish I wasn't in this traffic.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is, look at what we have on Elmwood Avenue.
Yeah.
Hundreds of small businesses.
Yeah.
A walkable neighborhood where people can go out they can walk to dinner, they can walk to the grocery store, they can walk. They don't need to be reliant on a car, and that's all there because of the vitality of that commercial corridor. The people on Jefferson don't have that luxury, or on Fillmore, because over time those neighborhoods have been hollowed out. They don't have as many customers, and there's not as much private investment there just because they don't have the economic vitality to support it. So they all feed together. all of our decisions impact another one. You know, you push on this, it affects something else, right? So, you know, the reason why the public was so adamant against this tunnel is because, you know, we know that there are challenges on the east side and we want things to be differently, but that tunnel didn't do anything differently. All it would do is continue to solidify in place for the next 50 to 60 years a disastrous decision that was made 60, 70 years ago. And we're going to be stuck with it for centuries, perhaps another century.
Oh.
So this is where, what do you get? You get a green, you know, a deck, you know, with some grass and some shrubs that you didn't have before. It's an improvement, but how it affects transportation, mobility, quality of life, health, economic vitality over the long term, none of that changes, you know, because you still have a highway. It's still consolidated in that corridor.
Well, okay. So there's one thing, you've been here 20 years. Okay. I grew up here, and I can tell you that when I left Buffalo twice, and the first time I left, I wasn't quite as aware of the negativity because I'd never been anywhere else. And then when I came back and I started feeling it, everything it's getting better. There's a lot of young people moving in. You know, you're considered one of those young people who have ideas and inspiration to change things. But when the steel mills went away, when the Coke factories went away, when all that stuff went away, everybody was hanging on with their nails in their teeth to whatever they had.
Right.
And all of a sudden, oh no, we can't have, no, never. It's never going to be like that again. That's never going to be how Buffalo is again. We're never going to have those things again. We're never going to have that ability to earn money again. And it was like that. And when I moved to New York City, and everybody was like excited about life, and everything was a possibility, and I could get a job in a second, you know, I saw that it could be different, and I came back here, and it was the same. It was like when did I move back here? 87.
Wow.
Nothing could ever be good again. Nothing's ever going to be good again. Nothing's good.
Right.
And everybody was like had this negativity factor, and I picked up more on it because I understood that it's not like that everywhere. And then when I moved away, again in 2008, I started getting involved in these Facebook pages for Buffalo, all these new people coming in, boomerangs and blow-ins and a couple other things. And I'm like, wow, there's some new energy coming to Buffalo. Maybe there's a chance that things can change, that people can become excited about life again, you know, be hopeful.
Right.
But I mean, now you're saying that our government, our local city government, is. Do you think it's still in that weird negative mindset, or do you think it's just corrupt?
I think both exist. I think there's an inertia there that any new idea needs to overcome, for sure. I felt it with Buffalo Reuse, you know, for sure. I came here with eyes wide open, seeing nothing but potential for this place, and very quickly recognized, you know, as I was starting to talk about Buffalo Reuse and the potential of it and what we wanted to do, that there was a lot of naysayers, you know, a lot of people that were like, oh, it's been tried before and it's failed and blah, blah, blah. And I get all of that. And I don't even judge it anymore because, you know, I just choose not to spend a lot of energy there.
It's a habit.
You know, it is.
It's a habit like anything.
Yeah. So you just focus on what you can control and what you can influence. And you know, we've done that. And sometimes it's out in the open and it's in your face. And sometimes it's just, you know, a quiet little, you know, rustling of the leaves in the background. You know, we started the Foundry in 2012, which was like an incubator, a small business incubator for the community. And, you know, now it's, you know, I'm not involved in it anymore, but it's this growing energy, and they do different things that I never envisioned, which is amazing. There's a community metal shop.
Where is that located?
At where Buffalo Reuse once stood, at the corner of Northampton and Jefferson, 298 Northampton. And and they offer small spaces. But just down the street at 980 Northampton, we're doing a very similar thing in our building at the Guild at 980, where we basically have 62 businesses that are under our roof. Small businesses, artists, designers. There's a guy that does dental. Almost like he builds the crowns and for the dental industry.
Because they do that on printers now.
Oh, they do all kinds of things, and he makes them still. So who knows? I don't know. But the point is that it's a small, a whole building of small businesses, and we're not out there going crazy about it. We're just providing, we call it affordable spaces for creative people. It helps me cover the expenses of the building, and then we give back by offering, 24/7 access for people that have a small business. So what I learned specifically during this campaign is that there's so many people that are out there that are doing these things. Like I met Richard, that's doing this amazing, provides
Richard's an
this
institution.
Yeah, that provides this service, for the community. And there are so many people like this that either A, are already doing something, or B, would do it if they were asked.
This is the factory
And I think
of Buffalo.
that's the potential. Go ahead.
This is the factory of Buffalo.
Yeah.
This is definitely a place of creativity, and you've made a space where people can feel safe and included. So I thank you for that. It was 30 years now. I came here before I moved to New York, but 30 years since I started coming after seeing your show when I was sick, and coming back, because he did the public access TV shows for a long time. Oh, that retrospective! I wish everyone could see that. That was so fun. There was a retrospective done. That was a while. That was 30 years ago, at UB, right? Yeah, when you were working with Hallwalls. So that it's a great place for people to just explore ideas.
Yeah, and I think that that's a metaphor for what I saw in Buffalo, which is a place where people can come and do creative things, unlike they can do them in other big cities. Because you can be, even though housing is more expensive and that kind of thing now than it was 20 years ago, you can still come, and there are still opportunities to connect with other creatives, to do it in an affordable way, to start a business, to make an impact on your community. You can, the thing here is that you can do little things here and they make profound impacts. Like I remember when the Tool Lending Library was just starting.
Yeah, that's a great place.
Over in University, or of a university district on Main. And they just started with just doing some, tool lending and then helping with some gardens. And now they have their own building and it's much larger. And I saw last weekend they were doing a clothing swap, and, it's all of this thing. But again, it comes back to these ideas. And that's why I say, they're all over the place. You just have to, when I came to Buffalo, I found them mostly by studying bulletin boards. You go and you study bulletin boards, and you're just always mining, because there's people out there that are trying to connect with other people. Like, it's part of who we are as human beings, but it's also like an essential need for people to feel connected to something, a purpose, and I think that purpose is something that I think about all the time. Like, how do we create more purposeful activities, events, engagement, initiatives, so that people feel a part of something? That's how, in our small corners of the world, we make transformative change. Because right now, I think a lot of the issues that we see in society, depression and anxiety and suicide and drug use and abuse and all of these things, are really linked to people's growing isolation and that lack of connectivity.
We've talked about that a lot, don't you think? Yeah, and keeping people connected. I mean, how many shows do you do out of the studio now?
Well, there's usually something here every night.
Every night, right?
Yeah.
And you've got so and
'Cause so, you know what people say to me?
what's,
I'd like to start a show. Can I have it every Tuesday? I go,
Good luck with that.
why don't I just show you the openings? And they go, 2 months from now.
yeah. So, but I'm always telling people too when I meet them. I said, "Oh, you want to do a show? You can talk to my friend Richard. He'd love that."
I love that too.
Yeah. So just
I still want to meet those psychedelic mushroom people.
yeah. Well, you said they were coming. They didn't come.
Well, they set up a date, but it was 2 months away. So.
Oh.
They haven't set up yet. They haven't been here yet.
Yeah. So I feel that this place brings people together, the people that would never have met otherwise, because in Buffalo, and that's one thing. When I lived in New York, my husband was a musician, and I knew other people in music because it was a small collection of people that you know because they all performed out in the same clubs and this and that. But you didn't know any actors. You didn't know any people who were writers. You didn't know those other people. But here, there's a way somehow that everybody in every concentration gets to know each other. So you know the actors. You know the people who are writing plays. You know all of these people because they communicate together from all of their different specialties. And one of the places they meet is here. This is one place people who are doing things meet. And I love that about this because it makes me feel like I'm part of something big,
Right.
right? It's like this big thing. Even though it's Buffalo and it's our small circle. It's still big. I like it. So I'm asking Richard for some things that are on his list. We haven't gotten to Richard's list yet. But do you have something you wanted to discuss today?
Well, I can tell you the first thing on my list.
Oh, that'd be great.
You probably heard about this story on the news. I like the way it's told in this paragraph.
Okay.
John F. Kennedy's granddaughter, Tatiana Schlossberg, went into a prestigious hospital to have her baby. A few hours after she delivered the baby, doctors noticed that her white blood cell count was very high. They said, stay here a few days while we check this out.
Yeah.
Further testing confirmed you have myeloid leukemia.
Wow.
And it's a so rare version of it that less than 10% of the people who have it survive. Now, there's a new treatment for this, and it shows promise. Unfortunately, the present government discontinued the funding for the treatment.
Oh.
That's
Wow.
her cousin, Robert Kennedy, who cut off the treatment.
Wow.
That's a
How's that for irony?
that sounds like some kind of weird circle of life or death.
So what she did is she went online and she just called him out on it. You know, what kind of a cousin do I have that he's doing this? And because you often think it's affecting the unknown people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now here it's affecting you.
Wow.
Well, and I've seen a lot of things on news shows about how cutting funding is impacting on people with different kinds of diseases that they were so close. And now they have to find a different source of funding. And sometimes people are, rich people are coming forward and offering money. But, a lot of those rich people are on the side of the administration right now.
Yeah.
So, there's some great stuff out there that if they figure it out, like CRISPR, I'm always harping on CRISPR, where they can, they know your DNA sequence.
Okay.
They look at it and they find the DNA that is the reason why you have, let's say, sickle cell anemia, because this is one they can do.
Right.
And they take it and they cut it out and they get a healthy one and they
put
put
it
it in there and it cures the disease.
Wow.
It's magic. It's totally magic. So, I mean, these kinds of things that we need the funding. I mean, I'm sure there's some corruption in those areas too with scientists or whatever, but how much? These are people who are really trying to change the health of the world.
Mm-hmm.
CRISPR was on 60 Minutes yesterday.
Was it? Oh, you know what? I think Greg took off the recording of 60 Minutes because it was a football game he was recording or something. Damn it.
There's a high school who has a research lab, and the teacher in the lab said, I wonder if there's a way that we could use CRISPR to try to solve a upcoming problem, and that's Lyme disease.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so what she did is she said, well, first of all, we got to get all the variables down so we know what genes are affected. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need a database and then a way to figure out how to use the database. So she said, this is a computer programming problem. So she and her students kept working on the computer programming problem, kept working on it. And then somebody said, do you realize that once a year, there's a world prize given out to all the laboratories that make significant contributions to medicine, no matter how small? Why don't you sign up for it? So they did. And they won the prize.
Wow. A high
for-
school?
They won the prize for the program that helps sort out the data.
Oh, that's so cool.
So there were 10 prizes given out. Hers was the only one from the United States. 7 of them, the other 7 were from schools in China.
Wow.
Wow. What's wrong with us?
What can we learn from that?
What is wrong with us? I don't understand. Okay. And this is another thing I harp on all the time. Our educational system, the public school system.
I had a feeling you were going there.
The public school system was designed by people during the Industrial Revolution, by robber barons, and they wanted people to be smart enough just so that they could work for them. No critical thinking, no branching out on your own, just be a good little worker bee. And it's still, we have not changed it. It's still there. If you send your children, if you have enough money to send your children to private school, or if they're smart enough to show potential and they can go to a good charter school, you know, they'll learn critical thinking. But if they're in the public school system, they're not. And look, the mess we're in. Look at it. It's and no, and I came from Lovejoy, blue collar. I used to pretend I was dumb because I wanted to fit in. I didn't read because nobody read books. They were boring. But I got lucky and I met somebody who figured out a way to get me to start reading, right? I got lucky. I was one person and I got lucky. All the rest of the people that I grew up with didn't get lucky. They all voted for Trump. I feel bad.
Right. Well, I wasn't allowed to, quote unquote, not allowed to talk about education during the campaign because, the mayor doesn't really have any impact over the educational system in this.
Oh, that's separate?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not separate. The mayor has, I was a little bit facetious there because I think that the mayor does have a lot of impact, and I actually ended up talking about it a lot more, I think, than most candidates do, at least in smaller settings, because I'm a teacher, and it's something that I've thought a lot about over the years and been involved in different alternative schools and have studied a lot of, and actually send my kid to a small Waldorf-inspired school that we started over on Northampton Street, called Rainbow House Community School. So, but you're right. I mean, there is so much potential to use that time in young people's lives to do things that are really innovative and creative and meaningful and purposeful, and to believe in young people's capacity to do innovative, purposeful work. And I think that's, you made a comment before the show about how I interact with my daughter, and I just interact with her like she's a human being, and I care for her, and she's inquisitive, and she asks questions, and I take those questions very seriously, and I respond to them. And I think that there are a good number of teachers that would approach education in a more creative, open way if they weren't feeling these outside pressures. And
teaching to the test.
Yeah, the test, or believe it or not, parental expectations is a big pressure point. Like, we are increasingly, as parents, putting pressure on teachers to prepare kindergartners for college. When we know from a child development phase that the most productive outlet for a young person of kindergarten and first grade age is play. Yeah. It's where they develop socialization and communication and problem solving and conflict resolution, and they start to develop leadership capacity, and they start to engage in all of these behaviors that really build a foundation for who they're going to be someday. And when we've whittled our educational system down to basically, you got to learn how to read as quickly as possible, and if you're not reading by first grade, you're learning disabled, or you need to have acquired all of these skills by a certain amount without any consideration for different learning styles, kinesthetic learning, artistic learning, physical learning, using your body, using your imagination. Sir Ken Robinson, speaks about, when he was with us, the loss of, creativity and imagination in education, because it's just about the information. And, unfortunately, I can teach people information in 5 or 10 minutes. Mm. It's not, that's not the difficult, that's not the task of education. Right. The task of education is to create engaged, inquisitive, creative, inspired learners, right? That have tools, right? That have the tools to get that information. I mean, the thing is, with our phones, you can pick up a phone and get more information than we've ever known. You can consume 10 lifetimes of information in a year if you wanted to, just by picking up a phone. Mm. So, but we're not more prepared for challenges now, even though we have that tool. Mm-hmm. And as human beings.
And I don't know.
I don't think we are.
I don't know why this is, but my mother, she'd be in her hundreds. She'd be 100-something now if she was still alive. When she went to grammar school, St. Agnes, the same place I went, that was our family tradition, alma mater, St. Agnes Grammar School. My mother didn't go to high school, but my mother could sit down and read a book and the paper. I mean, I don't know how much of it she understood or she cared about, but the books, she'd read hot books about movie stars. But there's kids that are leaving high school now that can't read. Right. I don't. Is that because of teaching to the test? I mean, what is that?
Well, I mean, I think it's the whole ecosystem of the educational system, in my opinion. It's. I mean, that's part of it, but it's also all of the challenges that our teachers and our communities are dealing with. I mean, if you look at how economics affect education, it's the growing disparities that we see economically in our communities. And, in Buffalo, if you don't test into the right school, then you're left behind in these other schools, mm-hmm. right? And those other schools then have experienced essentially a brain drain, where the creative, most prepared, most ready, most engaged learners go off to the elite schools, and everybody else is left to settle with whatever is left, And I think that when you have these growing disparities, then that puts more challenges on the teachers. It puts more challenges on the Toronto public school system is not like that. You don't test into certain schools and leave your neighborhood. There is equitable.
Tell me about that.
There is more equitable resources. The neighborhoods and the communities that have more, more dire needs get more funding and more resources and more staff. And but the idea is that there's an equitable framework. The other thing is that the Toronto district school is the whole Toronto metro area. It's not just the city of Toronto.
Oh, I
right?
see. So it would be like Clarence and Lancaster.
Right. I mean, if you think about the amount of resources that we spend on administration in our school system, the way that it's devised, like we have a superintendent and then assistant superintendents and principals and assistant principals in every one of our schools. Guess what? Williamsville also has a superintendent. So does Hamburg. So does Lackawanna. So does Williamsville and Clarence and Tonawanda and So we have all of this duplicative structure and support systems to support a body of students that is still a fraction of the Toronto Board of Education.
Toronto's big.
A fraction. So that's where we're not thinking broadly and big picture about how we best utilize our resources. What we're doing is we almost have this, hoarding mentality, right? Where we're hoarding the resources for our kids and for our community and for our whatever.
And that's just about
and I think that's where there needs to be this transformative shift in the way that we structure
my
things.
daughter and her husband started having children. That was the first thing that they thought about was where's the best school system. Right. Now the thing is they have to pay. They're in Clarence. Right. They have to pay a lot of taxes.
Right.
But if they lived in Buffalo, they felt the need to send them to private school. I mean, and so if this was spread out, because the taxes in Buffalo are very low. One of the reasons I wanted to move into the city was because the tax structure is so low. But but that's not serving anyone, really. If you have to send your kids to private school for them to get a good education, why is it so great to pay $1,000 a year in taxes?
Well, the thing is, the city of Buffalo Public Schools gets plenty of money. It's not that they're financially starved. They're just the majority of their money doesn't come from the tax base. It comes from the state of New York. Okay. So it's still north of $30,000 per person per pupil in the city of Buffalo. Wow. So that's a big part of my point, which is that if you just keep throwing money at a system that doesn't work, it doesn't make that system better. Yeah. It's like what we're doing isn't working. So we have to think about more creative ways to expend those resources and think about ways to change the philosophy and the pedagogy to make sure that kids are able to learn in this new world that we're living in. So what are the schools that are successful in the metro area doing differently that the Buffalo schools are not? I don't know that they're doing much different. If you look at, let's say, City Honors, yes, right? Yeah. I mean, the challenges that are because you test into City Honors or because you test into Olmsted, you're getting kids that are more prepared, that have more family supports, that have more resources, and therefore, because they have this foundation, this strong foundation behind them, that school then is more successmore because you have young people that are coming that have more support and more preparation and more stability and more maybe innate intelligence because they were able to, at least for the way that the system is designed. Remember, the system is designed to reward a specific type of learner. Right. So those kids that are testing into that system, they're most prepared and also most able to succeed in that system because the test rewards them.
We're
Right? So
we're going to have to end
It's
on
a whole
that
nother
because-
conversation.
I know, because here we are. We've only got 30 seconds left. Now 29, 27. So Richard, I know that we don't have enough time to discuss anything else, but this was fascinating. Thank you so much for coming. And you are welcome back anytime.
Oh, we'd love to be back anytime.
Yeah, we film on Mondays at 7. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Tom, for being so. He's got the stone.